Welcome to Permission to Kick Ass, a podcast about leaving self-doubt in the dust, punching fear in the face, and taking bold action toward your biggest dreams. I'm Angie Coley, and let's get to it. Hey, and welcome back to Permission to Kick Ass. With me today is, and he's making his second appearance, say hi to Brian McCarthy.
Oh, hey.
I'm so glad to see you again. And it's so funny, too, because we got to hang out in Denver last week, and now we're talking virtually while you're in Denver and I am in Louisville. It's bizarre. I love life.
Yes. Heaven forbid we hang out too much and talk too much in person. Get back to the safety of behind our screens.
Yes. Let's do the real conversing behind the screens. So tell us a little bit about you and your business.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I used to be a copywriter, still dabbling a little bit, but now have shifted to mindset coaching for freelancers and entrepreneurs, mostly helping entrepreneurs that are stressed out, being able to grow their business without all the stress and while actually enjoying their life. And also doing that with copywriters and also kind of helping them like step off, get away from client work, get to getting their own thing going, overcome the mental head trash that keeps them from getting out, owning their authority and getting their own coaching, consulting, or kind of like offers going.
I love it. Well, and then for those of you who are longtime listeners to the show, you've probably heard me mention Brian, I don't know, probably 2-3 dozen times by now. But he is my coach. We've been working together for 2 years and was instrumental in helping get this podcast off the ground. Your episode number 16 is one of the more popular ones that people are just like, oh my gosh, y'all have such good energy. And I was laughing the whole time. Right? How dare business be fun, man? We were told to put on a suit and tie and be miserable.
Tie and have meetings that nobody likes. And
I do want that ribbon to be a thing. Like I survived another meeting that should have been an email.
Yeah. That was actually, I've been thinking about this. You know how like so many people get into this entrepreneur thing because it's like they see the bullshit of like the corporate world, and I'm just like, I don't want to do that. Like I want to do my own thing, entrepreneur, freelancer, woo. And then they join that, and then they quickly like the same cycle starts to repeat where it's like, yes, oh, but I need to do that a certain way. Oh, but this is the way to be an entrepreneur. It's like, and we just kind of get trapped into, okay, we just abandon this path for this other kind of path. And yeah, we get kind of caught in a lot of the same cycle and head trash and like, I need to be this certain way. And we forget about like the whole point we left was so we could have more fun, have more freedom, express ourselves, that kind of stuff. That's just been fun to notice.
I love that. No, I noticed that in myself too. Like leave the corporate job because it's making me miserable, but the corporate job is the only context that I have. So I immediately go about recreating that in my own business because it's my only sense of quote unquote normalcy. And people like laugh at me when I tell them, no, I've done like $100,000 strategies while in a hot air balloon, but it's true.
Yeah. That's
you
super
don't
cool.
have to be at a desk anymore to be productive. You just don't. You don't.
Yeah, it's fun watching the rest of the world start to catch on to that.
Yes, I know, right? It was pretty interesting when I first hit the road last year because I was kind of surprised. You and I are steeped in this world of like people that are digital nomads and who have been working remote. And I was doing it for years before I started my own business, just working remote with my company. And then folks were like, oh my gosh, is that new since the pandemic? And I was like, oh no, I've been working online since 2017.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's the wave of the future. I do think it's great that the last time that we were talking, we were celebrating kind of the getting over the fears and just getting the podcast out there.
Yeah. How does it feel looking back at that of like the fears of having the podcast versus like where you are now with it?
I know it's bizarre. Most of the people that I talk to these days are people that I'm just meeting for the first time because they're pitching me. Like they found the show. They found my ideal guest manifesto in the application, and they're telling me why they should be on the show versus me having to say, hey, I need guests. Would you come on the show?
And these are like people with PR firms and shit too.
Yes.
Like reaching out to you. It's like,
Yeah, it's the next evolution. Like we're developing relationships with some of these PR people who are sending us repeat guests.
Yeah.
And then we get to tell them about our mission and the kind of people that we're looking for. And they go out and find their people that fit that. And I'm like, yes, this is brilliant.
Yeah.
So I just get to show up and rant. And then the production takes care of itself because we've built the systems around that. And then everything that I used to wig out and freak out over is largely systematized to the point where I just show up and talk and then it all goes live and it's wonderful.
Yeah. I look forward to that when you sell that as a product. That sounds freaking great.
I do. And props to my former assistant, Ashley, who's a genius. But she set up like this whole production process that just I hand it off to my new assistant and everything keeps rolling between my editor and my writer and it goes live. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
I never could have conceived of any of this until I got started and got overwhelmed by all of it, though.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always that like those earliest bits are just the hardest.
Right. And when you get stuck in that like planning and the getting ready to get ready phase, I like to call it, where it's like,
yeah.
That
was my first year as a copywriter. I think
getting ready to get ready.
Copywriters especially get stuck in that phase. We're like, all right, once I do 4 more courses and handwrite 10,000 more ads, then I'll be ready. That's like my number one advice to copywriters now is like, you are ready way before you think you are.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That's my biggest thing when I'm coaching people too. And in fact, a lot of the folks that I'm coaching, they have some significant life experience. Like they've been in the job force for 10 years or more by the time they decide they want to do anything entrepreneurial. And I wind up talking to them and being like, why do you think that you're a beginner at this? Oh, well, I haven't had a client before. Oh, well, yes, you're true at business. And I understand that the skills development is something that needs to happen. But are you a beginner at this particular skill? Because it doesn't sound like it based on what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that goes... that's another thing I've developed or seen a lot in coaching is, just how bad people are at giving themselves credit for things.
Yes.
They're really good at giving other people credit. And they'll downplay their accomplishments, downplay their abilities so much. I think there's a certain type of person that doesn't. And then that makes everyone else not want to even more. Because it's like, well, either I've got to downplay myself or I'm like that asshole. And nope. So I'm just going to be like outrageously, I don't know if humble's the right word because being humble is great, but like, it's kind of downplaying their own ability and accomplishments.
There's a point where being humble is detrimental. And I don't know, I always thought of it as kind of a virtue, but now that I'm working with a new business partner, I've been working with you for a couple of years. I don't know. I'm kind of getting the message loud and clear from my network and my most trusted friends and colleagues that you need to be talking about what you do with pride and joy and enthusiasm, and that there's nothing wrong with that. Like, don't wait for other people to dig up all of the good shit about you and be like, well, I went out of my way to find all the great things about you. That's not really the way it works.
Yeah, that's what I've been like more focused on. Like just doing for myself, like just emailing my list of focusing more on like the breakthroughs my clients are having that I having, and just the fun I have writing that stuff.
Yes.
It kind of like it's just like continuously like it's cool because it continuously like is a little like, oh yeah, no, you're good at this. It gives you that kind of a thing. And like helping see like how needed it is. Like that's creating content has just been so fun for helping me stay in touch with the fun and like stay in touch with like how important like this kind of work. I don't know, it seems a little like blowing smoke up my ass now, being like, this work is so important, but you know what it is. Because otherwise often that's people just end up running into the same kind of roadblocks over and over, and that's usually just because of the mindset stuff wasn't addressed properly.
Well, and I was talking about this in one of my mastermind groups actually this very morning, because they were talking about another business group that we all know that has kind of 3 different tiers based on where people are at their business. And obviously the largest tier is the folks that are brand new. But then there are folks that are consistent 6 figures and want to scale. And then there are people that are like hitting 7 figures and beyond and really want to just like work on their legacy.
Sure.
And my friend was joking that like there needs to be a 4th tier, and it needs to be the pre-beginner tier. And that one should probably be the narrative, the story, the mindset tier. Like, get all your shit right in your head.
Yeah. That's like, I've got some one of my big clients that I was doing like copy and marketing stuff for. That's like what, like, they're in the parenting market, and that's what so much of their stuff has turned into. It's like, and even like their it's like, we tricked you into, like, this is actually a personal development program hugely, because nothing's going to work until you stop beating yourself up so much, until you stop having such a negative worldview, until like you can get your mindset to see things differently, to start to like get out of the negative spiral and like feeling like crap is just constantly piled on you. Like, you gotta get that before we can do anything. And then that becomes such, and like people are very hesitant to that, because it's such a like natural thing to think that our problems are all external, and that it's always like, well, I don't need to change, they need to change. I don't need to be different. My boss needs to be different. Like, and it's like, yeah, that's all part of it. But like, even like the studies around happiness have shown that's like, okay, your external circumstances are like, you know, a certain percent. And then the bigger part is just how you, like, your relationship to those circumstances, how you view them, how you take in information and think about it, because you can make a pretty awesome life pretty miserable with just by your perspective and attitude and how you choose to take in information.
Oh, yeah. And this can get a little bit meta too, right? Because you are my coach, and I can't tell, for everybody listening, Brian can verify this. I can't state how many times, it is uncountable how many times that I have been ruminating on something, just digging in and really wallowing in some line of anxious thoughts or fears. And as soon as I say it out loud to Brian, I hear how ridiculous it is. And this concept is fascinating to me because it made perfect sense while it was bouncing around in between my ears. Yeah. Just getting louder and louder and louder and amplifying itself. Yeah. And as soon as I said it out loud to another human being, I'm like, that's fucking ridiculous. How did that make sense 5 seconds ago? What? Yeah, and so I've taken to calling that like shining a spotlight on the shame. Yeah. Because the shadows can't take over things when you turn on the lights, right?
Yep. Yeah, yeah. Shame can't live in the light, or whatever that saying is. Yeah, and like that's like such on the importance of like even just having someone to talk with your shit about, so that you're not just stuck in that loop. Like, you know, so many freelancers, entrepreneurs, or whatever. It's like, you know, if you're in the mastermind and there's still a little bit of like posturing of like everyth's going great, I can't let everyone see how much I'm really falling apart here.
Oh gosh.
There was something else. I was about to go with some other direction with that as well. My thought just disappeared from my brain.
All good. We'll probably
I was
find
going
it
somewhere with that, and then the train just left before I could hop on.
No, I remember that the posturing, because I fell prey to that pretty early in my entrepreneurial career. It's, you know, I fell in with what I call the dick swinging crowd, the folks that are constantly bragging and this is the one right way to do things and crushing it, bro. I call them the douche marketers. And I know there are a lot of people that wig out at the idea of a douche, but if you think about it, a douche is literally a product that solves a problem that doesn't actually exist, invented by people that know nothing about the problem that they're trying to solve. So that's like the epitome of a douche right there. Yeah. I'm going to write a book about that, the anti-douche marketer someday. But, you know, I fell into that and I had to make it seem like I was better than I was. And I couldn't share any weaknesses because I was afraid they were going to pick me apart. But the irony of ironies was that years later, when I found an abusive relationship falling apart, had come to a mastermind fully prepared to posture and like, here's what's going great. Here's a win I had this week. Here's a business challenge. And as soon as I opened my mouth, the words came out and it was like, I think my relationship is falling apart and I really don't know what to do. And then I was like, did I just say that? Yeah. Jesus. And then the spark.
Yeah. And that's, that touches on, and like I just remembered where I was going with that rant before it fell apart.
Go for it.
Like, yeah, the importance of just like having people to talk to about that stuff. Because, like,
Yes.
yeah, at your mastermind, if you're maybe unsure about it, or they're not, if like that. If your breakup is what's holding you down, then like that can be a pretty dicey to bring it up there. Or like, if you've got friends and family, but a lot of times people are like, my wife doesn't want me hear me just talk about how stressed I am with work all the time. Like that's not helping the relationship. If it is, great. But I just know a lot of people either don't feel comfortable with it or like aren't able to get everything out because they don't want to like burden their friends or their wives or whoever with their stuff. So I was thinking, like, even before I got into the coaching stuff, I even used to just do a men's group where it's just like once a week or every 2 weeks. It sounded so weird at the time. This is back when I was just like, what dude's talking about feelings? What the heck is that? Gross. But like, it was so like I remember going there one time and I had recently been through a breakup. And I thought I was over it and I thought it was fine. And then they were like, everyone gets like 15 minutes, just talk about whatever. And so I had my 15 minutes. And I'm like, I don't really know what I have to talk about. I'm like, no, I'm fine. Everything's going great. After 15 minutes, I'm fucking crying and just being like, like I didn't realize how much this still hurt. And I kind of regret it and all this stuff. And so it's like, and it's so much like that stuff can just kind of like stay there. Like that could have like, luckily I had this kind of like group where I'm like that, like everything is fair game. And it's, no one's going to judge you or tell you to do like that. You should like tell you what you should have done. Like people are just going to listen and accept and just be like, yeah, man, sucks. Like, sometimes that's just all the fucking therapy or whatever you need is just someone else to nod their head and be like, yeah. So, I mean, that's just a pitch for everyone's have people that you talk to.
Yes.
Don't need to struggle through this shit alone. There's lots of avenues for getting, stuff so they're not bumping around either in your head consciously like you were having before, or even subconsciously without you even realizing it. It's just this problem that's just still there that you don't realize until you're 15 minutes into talking about your breakup.
Well, I think that's funny too, because like, of course I had in my head before I made that announcement randomly to my masterminds that, I'm fine. This is fine. I don't need to tell them everything that's going on. They probably don't want to hear it. Right. Just that story.
Totally.
And I think some part of me knew that was a safe space because for the year or two prior, I had been moving toward jettisoning the douche bros and the folks that I didn't feel safe around, and actively surrounding myself with people who were supportive. And I know I had seen people in the group talking about, I've got this struggle or that struggle that I'm dealing with, and it's making business kind of hard right now. So I think instinctively on some level, I knew that this was a place where I could tell them this is my reality right now and nobody would judge. And I think what really surprised me was like, they let me have that space. They let me get it all out. And then every single person in that group reached out to me privately and was like, I'm sorry that you're going through this. You are an amazing person. You deserve all the great things in life. Thank you for sharing that with me. And then I started to realize, because what turned me down this path in terms of a thought process was when you mentioned, like, we don't want to burden people with how we're feeling. And there are some people out there that really can't handle it and they see other people like sharing feelings as a burden. But I think the more well-versed, and make no mistake, I think there's a movement right now toward mental health, taking care of yourself, shining a light on these anxiety spirals and seeking help when you need it, not suffering in shame and silence. So I mean, for you guys that want to do the stoic thing, y'all need to form a mastermind, I guess. I don't know, y'all can sit there and be silent and tough together.
That's what I did for 25 years. That led to a lot of crying and a lot of workshops.
And you're so right about that shit being buried in really weird ways. Because I know in our talk last week, I'm sitting here like, look at this thing that we won and look at this thing that we sold. And I'm so excited about what we're building. And then you asked me a question and I answered. And both of us realized at the same time, there's some deep shit there. Do we want to talk about that? And I was like, I don't know if I want to talk about that. That's some rough feelings. And then we spent like 15 minutes of the call that I fully anticipated would be, yeah, we're going to celebrate the shit out of this entire call and talk about all the wins and all the progress we've made. And then we spent like 15 minutes celebrating and 45 minutes with me like crying and going, I was really disappointed with this one thing that happened and everything else rocks, but that other thing made me cry and it sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like, I just kind of realized how much in the same business we are of like, yeah, all the like nice, shiny, like success, like things going great stuff. But it's like, oh yeah, like your business is great and your relationships are falling apart. Like, then what are we doing all this for? You know?
Yes.
Just like, yeah, being able to look at all like everything that's going on with a person and their business and, like, yeah, it all matters. And that, I think just that has gotten lost a lot with like, well, I don't know about lost a lot, but yeah, like, again, how like people just focus on the external stuff and thinking that will then solve problems.
Well, and I think, but you know, I've heard people talk about generations gone by and how business was run and stuff like that. But I think back then there were a lot of people that were just suffering in silence because that was the way that you did things and you didn't share all of this private personal stuff. I do remember that in the corporate office once where, you know, I think I'd had a fight with my partner at the time and I didn't sleep much. And I came in the next day and I was being a little bit attitudinal. My boss pulled me aside and he's like, yeah, you can't do that. And I was like, here's what's going on. And he goes, y'all millennials, y'all just like overshare. I don't need to know what's happening in your personal life. And I was like, well, I mean, it's context as to why I'm behaving this way. It's just something I felt compelled to share.
So a different generation. And like, yeah, I mean, that's, I don't know, like that thing of just like shut this half of yourself off to then go into work. Like, okay, some people can do it. Some people it works with. It's also really like it's really hard to not have things kind of, you know, if things are really bad at home, like to completely shut that off. And not saying like necessarily there can be a lot of like ways to deal with it and to be able to you know, be able to get through the workday and everything. But I don't know, this idea that to just like act like that there is no impact is I think is probably pretty few people that can actually like compartmentalize that well and strongly for a long period of time. Yeah.
And I think the long period of time is the key word there, because I can compartmentalize pretty well.
Yeah.
But I don't like to do that for the long term. Like it's going to leak over eventually.
Yeah.
And I love this movement toward like holistically treating things. You know, diet, exercise, regulation, mental health, therapy, like all of it, not just fixing one part. Realizing all of this shit is interconnected, personal life and business. You know, somebody recommended a show to me recently that I've been meaning to check out that actually deals with this concept. It's called Severance. I think it's an HBO show. Yeah. And that, okay, cool. You've seen it. So you probably know even more than I
like
do.
Like dark kind of
dark comedy.
Sad, miserable way.
Isn't that the whole premise of that show is basically that they have some sort of like implant or technology that literally lets you turn off your home life when you get to work.
Yeah.
And turn off your work life when you get to home, like in your brain. That is mildly terrifying.
Yeah. No thanks.
Being half a person at work, just showing up and being a robot.
Yeah.
Oh, why would you do that to yourself? Oh, all right.
Actually, that got me. I had a thought.
Yes.
If you wanted to talk about this, because we talked about like just like the different types of coaching. Like there's the coaching that leaves you feeling like good and inspired and stuff like that. And then thinking we've both had instances of coaching where you get off and you're just like, this I think just made things worse.
Yes. Or like, you feel like shit about yourself, like you've been doing everything wrong. Yeah. And that this person that you were like, oh, well, I thought I was paying you to support me and help me. And yeah, I don't need you to blow smoke up my ass about you're brilliant, you're wonderful. Yeah. But I would also like to not feel worse about myself when we get done with our calls, you know?
Like, I had two distinct experiences. So I was working with two different coaches like 5 years ago or so. They're both like half business, half life coaches, former therapists, all this stuff. And like one, like anytime I kind of brought up problems, he was very like empathetic and just kind of like just sort of was just like, had this like, you're doing the best you can kind of attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like, oh, poor you, or yeah, everyone's like doing so wrong or whatever. It was more just like validating feelings of like, yeah, I can understand. Yeah, that'd be hard. Yeah, I get that. And then I had another coach who would like, bring stuff up a lot. Like I might come with like the same problem 3 weeks in a row, and then I'm like, oh, I'm frustrated that I can't get through this problem. And he's just like, yeah, well, why can't you get through it? Like, just get through it already. Like that kind of an attitude.
Oh man.
And it was so the opposite, because like I just felt like I was having the same kind of conversation week after week. And he's just like, well, yeah, like, well, you're like more bummed out, but the other, like these other times you were really excited and enjoying life. And like, where's that version of you? Why can't you just be that more all the time? And I'm like, I don't fucking know. Like, that's why I'm here. And they're like, what are we doing? So it was a lot of like the coach, like kind of like, oh, I like seeing you where you could be. And I think that it's like, for me, that was like, I don't know, for some people that can be really inspiring and motivating. For me, it was just like a constantly feeling like, okay, I'm not good enough. Whereas when I had that coach that was like just kind of more meeting me where I was at, I guess, where it's just empathizing and validating the feelings. It's like, okay, now those feelings don't bother me so much, and now I can start to like create a plan figure out next steps to, try to get more of this other stuff that I want. So it was like, yeah. And I bring that up just because I think that's how, a lot of people might get coaches or work with coaches, and maybe they only experience one, like they don't kind of realize that other version, the kinder version that I certainly preferred a whole lot, is available as well. Like, I think there's just, every different coaches have their different strategies or methods or whatever. I certainly prefer and find to be far more helpful.
Yeah, with the calm ones for sure. I know it's interesting to me because I think at some point, like I got frustrated by that kind of coaching too, that just didn't make me feel good afterwards. And I felt like I was doing something wrong. And the more I've been studying coaching actively, not only because I want to be a better coach and get results for my clients that I'm working with, but I'm also unpacking this idea that my way is the right way. And that just because I can't see something the way somebody else can doesn't mean that it's not possible. And I've really been, on this idea for like the last year of I refuse to be the reason that somebody gives up on themselves. And the sad thing about that coach that makes you feel bad about yourself is I think 8 or 9 times out of 10, they genuinely do give a damn about you, and they do want you to succeed, and they care about you a lot.
Yeah.
And also they're kind of stuck in their idea of like, I can just will it. I can just show you the way. If you could just do it my way. And then a little bit, I heard frustration creeping in with that. Like, well, you're so happy, go lucky and great over here. Just be more of that. Yeah. Subtext, be ashamed of how you are now.
Yeah. That means who you are now is not good enough. So be more of the happy person that people would like more.
Oh, sure. Let me go over here and flip the light switch.
I'll just do that. Yeah. Yeah. It's like when those people are like, oh, I don't know, I'm sad. Well, have you tried just not being sad? Oh, you're not in this relationship? How about you just get over it then? Like, yeah, okay, go fuck yourself. Thanks.
Yeah, gosh, I love that. Oh, man.
Just live, laugh, love, okay? Just breathe. Everything's great.
This makes me happy because I think it ties in perfectly to what we were talking about right before we hit record with like building your business your own way. Yeah. And so like circle back to the beginning where we were talking about recreating this toxic corporate environment because it's all you ever knew. Yeah. But I think the coolest thing about going out on my own has been, and I've talked about this on the show before, I wanted to do this digital nomad thing. I wanted to do this adventure thing. And then I had in the back of my mind that, okay, well, but it's got to be business as usual for now until I've saved up enough money, until I've built up enough cachet and, authority to be able to do this. And what I discovered was, and this works for me, I won't proclaim that it works for everybody, but I just kind of had to go out there and do it and figure out how to make it work. versus coming up with a plan that I would implement someday. Like
that's the only way to do it. Yeah. It's like, it just comes down to it. Like to build your business your way comes down to like, you just got to go out there and get punched in the face a few times. Your original your original plan probably won't work.
Nope.
The plan that like the step-by-step system you learned will help you in certain areas, but you're building someone else's kind of model of a business for you to really get things your way. You're gonna at some point have to do something that's unique because that's what you are and that's how your business is going to be. And that's only gonna, like you've got to do, eventually you're gonna have to do something unique and different, and it's probably not going to work out the first time.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I love that you brought up unique and different, because especially in the marketing worlds, I think that gets conflated with I have to invent something that has never been heard of or discovered before in the history of man.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily true. By unique, it could be a new take on a very standard, very well-recognized system. It could be a faster way to do it. It could be a funkier way to do it. It could be just you incorporating your personality into the way this is done, or sharing your systems.
Totally.
Like unique doesn't necessarily mean you're Einstein or Edison here.
That they will build monuments to your glory for centuries to come.
Oh my gosh. I had that. I operated under that fraudulent belief for so long, just thinking that I couldn't make it. I couldn't step out into the spotlight until I had that 100% unique thing. And the irony to me is discovering all of these years later how backwards I had it, where it was like, go out and do the thing and get really good at it. And after a while, something perfect is going to come up. I know that you love this because we just started talking about this recently, but I've got a new business partner. We've been working together for 3 months. And I do remember this one day, we had hashed out all of our content and all of our training and what we were going to do. And I think we were calling it the launch diagnostic and the launch prescription. And she was like, well, we can't use launch prescription because this other person does like a marketing prescription thing and like the copy doctor or so. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something along that medical diagnosis and prescription thing. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And I don't want to go down that. Like, I'd love to do something more fun. And she goes, wait a damn minute. You're going to love this. Theme park. Something around a theme park, because she and I are both roller coaster nerds and giant like Disney nerds. And it eventually worked out to where we started calling our planning process a theme park schematic. And everybody does what your face just did when I say it's a theme park schematic. Because if you've been to a theme park, you can picture one in your mind and you know where all these different attractions are. And they don't necessarily seem related at the big picture glance, but when you get in there, it all just makes sense and it all connects together. And it's so much fun. And we're like, yeah, we're such fun-loving people, and we like playing hooky to go to parks, and we like just getting on random Disney rants, which we did on our mutual friend Jimmy Parent this morning. Just a tag team Disney rant about the current CEO. We're not going to go down that trail here, but people that know us get exactly what we're saying, and we got to embrace the fun thing that we love and totally build in a point where at some point I think I'm fully going to be able to deduct a trip to Disney World and teach people stuff.
That's the goal, baby.
Business expense.
That is why we're doing this.
Yes. You know, I always joked about that when I started my business. Like the only reason that I'm starting my business is to figure out a way to expense like random retreats in exotic places in the world. Yep. Funny how close that is to actually coming true right now. It actually has come true for one of my retreats. Be careful what you joke about. It might actually become your reality.
Yeah. I mean, again, last year at this time, we're talking about launching a podcast.
No kidding. And we did our case study for you a while ago. And it was funny to me because that circles back nicely to what you were talking about with not really acknowledging the progress that we've made and the successes that we've had. Because I know that you asked me to record this testimonial with you, this case study, and we sat down and then you like hit me in the face with this list of things I've done in the last 2 years.
Maybe I still have it.
And then I was like, wait, shit, you're right. Oh, wow, I've done a lot of things. But here I am just like looking at this thing ahead of me and getting frustrated by what feels like stalled out progress and a little bit of a backslide. And I'm going, I am a piece of crap. Look at how I can't get this thing in front of me done. And like, just turn around and look at all of the things behind you and go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It'll get done.
Yeah, and take some credit for you did that. Instead, oh, I got lucky. Oh, that was because that other person. Like, no, well, what did you contribute to that happening?
Thankfully for me, I get really defensive and aggravated when someone calls me lucky. And so like, I don't call myself lucky either, because that's one instance where I can acknowledge, and maybe I just need to borrow that for myself when I talk shit to myself too. But when somebody tells me, well, you're lucky and you have all of these advantages, and I'm like, let's not go there. Let's talk about all of the struggle and the hard work and the risks and the bets that I took on myself that got me to this place. Luck doesn't have a damn bit of thing to do with it. Timing, maybe, but luck, no.
I remember sleeping in my car thinking, oh, I'm so lucky.
Yes.
Everything's just falling into place for me.
Oh, man. I love that. And that ties into something nicely that we were talking about again before the conversation, which was like motivation. Because, of course, we're talking about all of this happy-go-lucky stuff, and we're talking about joy and these things that have got us super excited. But then the flip side of the coin is when, you know, you've got something good and you just don't feel like doing anything.
Yeah, I had that. I was doing that for like, especially a year ago. Like, basically, yeah, when I like started building up this coaching business more, or I had the idea to, but I was also very comfortable. I was working like 3 or 4 hours a day. The money was nice. I had my coaching clients, I had my marketing clients, and I'm just like, I could put in more work, or I could go sit on the patio and journal and play guitar and do some more improv comedy and all these other things. So I did all those other things. And it was just like several months of just like, should I be working harder? And I was always trying to tease out like, okay, is this secretly fear that's holding me back? Like, okay, fear that like, you know, it's not going to work, or whatever other bullshit stuff's going on. So why don't even try? Or is it, or like, because I'd also like gotten away from like this drive to like, so much of what I used to be driven by was like comparing myself to others. Like, oh, fuck, Jimmy Parents might be more successful than me. Can't let that happen. You know, that kind of bullshit. And like, so once I felt like, you know, I did the work to kind of get like, once I recognized that like through coaching and help, and I kind of like let go of that a bit. And then I didn't have that as a driver. And then I'm like, you know, I got this pretty like comfortable, nice, enjoyable life. And I'm just like, is that enough? Can that be enough? Can I just be like, what's wrong with if I just go through my days like this? So that's what I did. And I just kind of like really indulged in it. And again, like I also, when that first started, it actually started more than a year ago. When that first started, I had a coach that was like after maybe 2 months of me just kind of mucking about, he was like, okay, that's enough. What, like, time for you to do more shit. And I was like, is it though? Like, how do you know when I'm done? Like,
yes,
I don't know what's like, maybe like lessons I need to be learning here. What's like, maybe what kind of things like benefits this is having that I don't even know about. Like, I'm just supposed to just jump back onto the like, fucking Western society, be productive and get shit done all the time because you dubbed it so. Like, what? So yeah,
I just had this great visual of the productivity wagon as like an Oregon Trail thing, and like you tried to cross the river and your wagon tipped over and everybody died. Don't get on the productivity wagon. Yeah, it's doomed.
There's so much for. I actually had a client that I fucking loved him about this. He came to me and like he was a CEO looking to become. Oh, it says my speaker did something. Whatever.
Nope, I can hear you. You're fine.
Okay, cool. But I had this guy that was like, yes, CEO moving on to become trying to like start his own like liquor business, and he was just so not into like, this isn't about like making the fastest, hardest, biggest transformation. He's like, I understand that like things kind of evolve at their own pace. Like nature has its own, like you can't rush a tree to grow, you know, you just kind of let things evolve. And so he was looking for help to like build his business that way of like, look, I want to build my business, but I also, you know, family is super important, all this other stuff. And you know, he was able to do it, and he like his business is like kicking ass right now. He's doing this like mixed cocktail. Yeah, you had some of his mixed cocktails.
That's what I was gonna say. Was that him that did the Midnight Manhattan?
Yeah, Uncle Tim's Cocktails, unctims.com.
Yes.
They probably sell stuff online. It's delightful.
Yes, we had a glass when I was last week. Well, we had 2 glasses on your patio last week when I was in Denver. And well done, Tim. Well done, Uncle Tim. That was the tipsiest I have been in a while on 2 drinks. But it was a fun night.
That did the job. Yeah, so anyway, like just that idea of like, sometimes get like things, just allowing things to go at their own pace. And we like this, our world just glorifies the, you know, make $1 million in 6 months and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, and even if you do that, it's like, okay, but do you have the structures to like what was the cost of that? How like what did that do for relationships, for your personal life, for your personal health? What were the kind of like hidden costs or once again, I lost track of where I was going.
No, I like that. I had a client once that was he was a big name in the personal finance industry. Yeah. And when he finally released a course sharing what he learned with people, one of the things that he communicated with them was like, to what end, at what cost? He was like, so I was like hyper focused on this FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early, FIRE. And like basically burned a lot of bridges and like was so hyper focused on I have to hit this number goal that I lost sight of what really matters. And at the end of the day, if you're sitting alone in your mansion with your millions of dollars and nobody to share it with, it still feels kind of shitty, you know, like money can buy you things that will bring you to happiness, but money cannot actually buy you happiness. You have to do that work yourself. And I think that's important. And you said something else that I thought was super cool and something I'm coming to realize is more and more true as time goes on. I used to think everything happened for a reason. I don't believe that anymore. I think everything happens in its own time and that you usually stay in a place repeating the same lessons over and over again until you've learned what you need to get unstuck and keep moving forward. And like I was telling somebody the other day how bizarre it is that I'm in this situation. Like, if that relationship had worked out with my last partner, would I have a podcast right now? Would I have a business partner right now? Would I be doing this work? I honestly don't know, but I can look backward and say, when I hit the road and then I happened to go to Asheville and meet the woman who would now become my business partner, and like I can trace all of the steps to where this one bad thing happened in my life, but it kind of set me off down this path that led to all of these really awesome things happening that might not have otherwise happened. Everything in its own time, man. And sometimes you just don't understand it until you're looking backward and going, shit, I did do it.
Suddenly it makes perfect sense. And things could only have gone that way.
Yep.
But yeah, I just think that's like, I can just like, I was talking about my client kind of having that perspective. And I was like that was helpful for me to hear too. Cause I was like, that is something I kind of wanted more of and to do more. And like, when you start to get frustrated, you're not doing enough or you're not successful faster enough. And you can start to like play with that question of like could like maybe this is actually right where I need to be. Like, could this be actually the right spot for me? And chances are you'll look back on it probably differently on how you feel about it than their current state of like, I'm not doing enough, I'm a failure, and all that kind of stuff that kind of creeps in.
Well, and I'm not giving away the whole experience, the whole enchilada here, but one of my favorite questions that you ask me that I love to hate in our conversations is when you ask me, okay, so like, what are all the ways that this could be a good thing for you? Whatever you're doing. What are all the ways that this could be a bad thing for you? And then I have to think about it.
That's how you know why you're repeating the patterns. Because everyone thinks like, oh, what's wrong with me? I'm doing this thing over and over. It's like, because you're getting a benefit from it.
Yes. And I think that was the most surprising thing, that like when I have to sit there and actually in silence, usually, because you're good at that, fucker, like making me think about my own stuff. And I have to sit there and go, oh, yeah, actually, I could see how this has been beneficial and this has been comfortable and this has served me well in the past when I was in different circumstances. But now those circumstances have changed and I need to change my behavior accordingly. And then I can look at it from the flip side of the coin and be like, okay, if I keep doing this comfortable behavior, what is the impact on all my goals for the future and how I'm going to feel about myself if I don't make any changes and things like that. So all of this to say, Brian is an amazing coach and you should hire him. But if you take him away from me, I will fight you. Don't do it. I fully credit, and I didn't intend for this episode to be like all about life coaching, but I freaking love that it became about this, because coaching is such a huge, like, I don't want to say pop-up. Pop-up is not the right word, but it's a surging industry, and there are a lot of folks entering it that have a lot of experience, maybe with a particular skill or area, but not necessarily as coaches. And I think it's important
a lot of advice givers.
Yes, there's a lot of advice givers. And the funny thing is that the more I learn about coaching, the more I'm learning about it's not advice that matters. Yeah. It's about helping the person that you're coaching to understand that they already have the answers. And sometimes you just got to dig through all the shit to find it. But they're going to have much more success. And I've seen this with my own students too, as I've grown as a coach. They're going to have much more success and much more satisfaction if they're the ones coming up with the answers. And they're not just living life according to Angie because Angie has decided this is the way.
Yeah, that's totally huge. And also so important because you're helping people building the muscle of listening to themselves and trusting themselves.
Yes.
So then they're not constantly like, they don't even need to like I like working myself out of a job where it's like, people just can, I mean, there's always good to have outside perspective, but more and more people just being able to trust their own instincts and trust and listen to themselves and follow that instead of, all the noise out there. Like that's a huge part of like the angle of what I do, like why I do the coaching. It's, I had big issues with trusting myself or earlier in life. And then like that's changed so dramatically. And it's, like, yeah, that's a big thing that I like to help people with because once you trust yourself, so much of the drama and stress and stuff just fades away because you're just like,
yes.
Before it's like, oh, what if this launch fails? You'll fucking figure it out. Like,
Who knew? You just got to take a step forward and see what happens and then trust that you'll be able to figure it out from there. Oh, life.
I did want to circle back just on that motivation part, just to tie it up a little bit of like, so I had that kind of like, should I be working harder? It's basically the question I was asking myself a lot. And the things that kind of like helped change that a bit for me was like, one was just the time where I was like, okay, I've been asking myself, should I be working harder for like months? Like, like anytime things kind of nag at me quietly, I'm like, there's something here. Another bit was just kind of like looking at the different areas of my life. I'm like, all right, health's going pretty good, relationships good, all this stuff. I'm doing all these like fun things, improv, archery. Like I got a cool life going. And there was still just like, is there like, but I'm still kind of having these thoughts. And then I kind of realized like the contribution area of life was like, I could probably be doing more there.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm a little bit lacking. I'm asking this question. Wonder if those two things are related. And then also, like I at least, built the habit earlier this year because I used to be terrible about that, about like doing, like promoting myself, emailing my list, that kind of stuff. Built the habit to make myself do that. So I've been like emailing my list 3 times a week all year long, and it's been great. And I also just would like pay attention to like what satisfies me, what makes me happy, what's not throughout the day, and saw like how like much I enjoyed those emails, like working with clients, going like client wins, or even like today I worked on I've put the finishing touches on a lead magnet on how to leave client work behind, and for copywriters, how copywriters can leave client work behind and get their own like coaching consulting businesses going, which you can get at my McCarthy mindset what's my website? McCarthy mindsetcoaching.com/copywriters. And even working on that, like I was having so much fun with it. And like, it's just like, anytime I worked on my business, I was like, wait, no, I am really enjoying this. It was also another reminder of like, oh yeah, do more of the, like, get more of that contribution and the like, and that like satisfying feeling that comes from like working hard and doing, just like getting stuff done. Like, oh yes. Yeah, that is like playing guitar on the patio is awesome. So is like knocking out a bunch of like videos and emails and stuff like that can feel very satisfying too, especially when you see it as part of something bigger that you're working on or towards.
Yeah, that holistic life, man.
Yeah.
Like feeling lazy, becoming one with the couch and enjoying a lot of Netflix feels good for a while. But ultimately, it doesn't really make for a well-rounded human experience, like contribution and meaningfulness. Don't get me wrong, I love a good Netflix binge, but at some point I got to get out there in the world and help somebody achieve something.
Moderation, like everything else.
Yep. Even moderation in moderation. I go to extremes sometimes.
Yeah, I just did a like little like Aspen Labor Day weekend thing, and like was just just did archery and caught up on a bunch of shows and stuff, and it was great, and just got so like ready to like, all right, let's get back to work, baby.
Space is so important, and I find it funny how often themes pop up in my life. But like just last night, I was meeting with you know Marcella. I met with her. It just serendipity. She happened to be in Kentucky. I drove down to hang out with her and a bunch of people last night. And we did this fearless fast ride exercise that she loves to do. Nice. And the topic of the night was joy, which you would be familiar with because that is what flips me into my wheel of freedom. My essential nature is joy. And I'm discovering that like when I lean into that joy and I stop judging it, and I think that, business has to be serious, right? Recreating that old day job has to be serious. When I lean into joy, I not only do my best work, I fire people up. Like the energy is contagious. They start feeling a lot more joyful and hopeful. Yeah. And joy is a good thing. And it's also, it's a clarifier for me because if I'm feeling pulled in two different directions, I can literally sit down and journal for a little while about, is one of these something I'm trying to avoid? Is one of these something that brings me joy? Should I be working more toward the thing that's joyful? How could I make that work to where it supports my business and helps people? And joy is kind of like my divining rod now as to which direction I should go.
Beautiful.
It's lovely. It's lovely.
That's so much better than trusting an email in your inbox saying, here's how to make $50,000 next month.
so much better. So much better. And learning to trust yourself and your own intuition. Priceless. Yeah. So if you want to learn more about Brian and how to have him coach you as long as you don't steal him from me, where's the place that they need to go?
McCarthy Mindset Coaching /join is how you get on my email list. And you can also head to, if you're a copywriter, McCarthy Mindset Coaching.com/copywriters for that little guide on the basically 3-level high steps for how to break out of client work and get your own thing going.
And Brian's stuff works. I'm living proof. You're listening to the podcast. Hey, so go check that out. I will make sure that there are clickable links in the show notes. And thank you so much for being on for part 2.
Yeah. Thank you, Angie.
So that is it. Another awesome episode of Permission to Kick Ass on the books. If you want to know more about the show, if you want to know more about me, Angie Coley, and the mission I'm on to help entrepreneurs punch fear in the face and do big, bold things, then head on over to permissiontokickass.com. That is all one word together, permissiontokickass.com. Make sure to sign up for my email list so that you know whenever there's a hot, fresh, and ready podcast episode out for you. And also on Mondays, I like to send out a little newsletter called Kick Monday's Ass. I'm sure you're totally surprised by that. So thank you for being here with me today. I'm Angie Coley. Make sure that you share this with a friend that needs to hear this message today. Like it, share it, comment wherever you're listening to this today, and let's go kick some ass.